Coming up on today's show, I want to run through a perfect offseason for the Denver Broncos. With their season done after the wild card loss, I wanted to let a little bit of time go past before we start really looking into free agency and the draft specific to the Denver Broncos. So we're going to run through my 5-step plan for Sean and George Payton, who I know are watching, so get a pen and paper and write this shit down for them to nail the offseason. Now, if you're wondering if I'm any good at this, last year around the same time, this was my perfect offseason plan for the Broncos. Step 1 was draft Jaden Daniels. A little bit lofty looking back at it, but I think I also had some kind of trade up, but ultimately the Commanders were never going to leave number 2. Step 2 was sign DJ Reader. I was a little skeptical of Malcolm Roach, but Reader had a very good year for the Lions. Either one would have worked, though. They did somewhat restructure Courtland Sutton's contract. They just gave him more incentives, and he played very well. They did extend Patrick Surtain and Garrett Bowles. So I kind of went like 3 for 5. These 3 right here. So with that in mind, now let's talk about this offseason because it's a very different tune now that you have some comfortability and some confidence in your quarterback. Step 1 for me, in a little bit of a chronological order as we go from free agency to the draft, is signing safety Talanoa Hufanga. So the former 5th-round pick by the San Francisco 49ers has unfortunately been unavailable for the last 2 seasons for much of it. This past season, only playing 7 games. The season before that, 10 games. But you can see when he is on the field, there's a reason why he was an all-pro safety in 2022 when he had 4 interceptions, 9 pass breakups, amongst many other stats. But I'm looking at Denver safety room, and you've got a cheap option in Brandon Jones, or let's say a affordable option in Brandon Jones, and then P.J. Locke, who was just unplayable at times this past season. It felt like you don't have a lot of confidence in some of the younger players on this roster. We've barely seen J.L. Skinner. DeLaren Turner-Yell missed all of 2024. So I'd be interested in signing Hufanga to a 2-year, $25 million contract. That's an average of $12.5 million if I did my math right. You can guarantee $15 million, so it's kind of like a 1-year, $15 million deal, which, don't get me wrong, is a little bit on the pricier end for a safety, which the Broncos just moved on from Justin Simmons to save some money. But that was when they were entering a soft kind of retool, a pivot. Now that they got their guy at the rookie position, at the quarterback position, on a rookie contract, they should be a little bit more aggressive at some of these less important positions that can still have a big impact in the game, like safety. Now, before we look at the other steps in my perfect offseason for the Broncos, we crushed our subscriber numbers from January of 2024 when we only had 345 new subs. This month, this year, nearly 1,400. Can we get to 1,500? The clock is about to strike midnight. If you're looking for a free daily Broncos YouTube channel, I invite you to follow and hit the sub button down below. After signing Hufanga, the next order of business is re-signing linebacker Cody Barton. This might not be a big, sexy splash move, and honestly, I had signing Chris Godwin first, but I just kept thinking over, you've got Sutton, you've got an emerging player in Marvin Mims. I liked what we saw out of rookies Devon Vele and Troy Franklin. I don't know if you need to go out there and make a seismic move at wide receiver with the young, up-and-coming guys you have at that position. So how about bringing back someone who was excellent in the middle of the defense? Barton did a phenomenal job of filling in after Alex Singleton went down. He was a takeaway machine at times. He had the interception against the Saints, a forced fumble, sacks, pass breakups, tackles for loss, you name it. He was all over the field. So I'd be very much on board with running back the same 4 starting linebackers. You've got Cooper on an extension. Nick Bonito still has a few years left on his rookie contract. Singleton still has some years left on his deal. He'll be returning from his ACL injury. And you reemerge Barton to this group here, and this is a very formidable middle of the defense. So how about a 2-year, $10 million contract? That's an average of $5 million. This might be a little bit too far on the low end, but you rarely see average linebackers get paid like average linebackers. Like an average wide receiver is going to make a good chunk of change. Only elite linebackers and elite running backs get a big payday. Everyone else does not get paid for how good they truly are. So this might be a 2-year, $12 million deal, but either way, I'm still game in bringing back Barton. So that's my projected contract for the first 2 players. Before we look at the other steps in my perfect offseason plan for George and Sean Payton, I do want to give a big special shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Plus, for the big game coming up in a little over a week, they are putting Patrick Mahomes' passing yards at 0.5. They're just giving it to you. Take the more on it, pair with one more selection, and you're ready to roll at your big game party. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Moving on from free agency to the draft. First order of business in the NFL draft this year with the 20th overall pick. In my perfect ideal scenario, it is drafting Ashton Jeanty. Now, this is where we go a different direction from what I think the Broncos are going to do versus, hey, if I was calling the shots, what would I do? And I would take Ashton Jeanty, if available, at pick 20. Now, the if is a big, bolded, underlined, all caps if. You might go to the Cowboys at 12. He could go somewhere else, maybe like the Bears, for example, at 10. But if he is available, yeah, I'm not passing on Ashton Jeanty. The guy averaged 7 yards a carry. I don't care if he played at Boise State. I don't care if he played for the School of Deaf and Blind. He averaged 7 yards a pop, 2,600 yards, 30 touchdowns. He was one of the best college running backs we have seen in recent memory. This is a don't overthink it. We saw how great he was from September when they played Oregon all the way into the college football playoff. We don't need to be the smartest person in the room here. We don't need to come at this with some weird, quirky draft angle of, ooh, but I heard the combine didn't do super well on his shuttle. Who gives a shit? The guy was awesome with the pads on. So, I've lowered my heart rate a little bit. That's my ideal plan. Now, having said all this, we had Sean Payton after the season say that they are not going to move forward with a lead back. And they don't see a bell cow back as the way they want to go. This could be smoke and mirrors. Could be trying to make everyone think one thing and they're going to do something else, which he did last year with J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix. But I still believe that priority number 1 is fixing the run game. And the best way to do that is with Ashton Jeanty at pick number 20. I'm confident in this offensive line. It's a top 10 offensive line. The Broncos running backs, though, last year, as a whole, ranked 23rd in rushing yards with 1,400. We're talking bottom 10 in the league. Javonte Williams, who led the team in yards, one of the worst leading rushers in NFL history recently. He played in all 17 games, and he had 513 yards. Keep in mind, J.K. Dobbins had 520 and was the lead back for the Ravens in 2022 and played half the season. The only guys worse than that, Breece Hall and Joe Mixon, who also played less than half the season. And then Rex Burkhead in the lost 2021 Texans season, playing all 16 games and churning out 427 yards to lead the way. These are the team's leading rushers and the lowest in the NFL in the last half decade plus. So, I don't think I need to go any further when I say the running back and the run game as a whole has to be the biggest priority. And when you're picking 20, and there is what I think is a generational type running back or close to it, if he's there, don't overthink it. Just submit it like it's a fantasy football draft. So I'm typing Y for yes. The big question, though, is will he be there? But it's my dream, so I'll have it my way. On to round number 2. After taking Ashton Jeanty in round 1, which might be a little bit of a stretch, but the NFL draft is always good for a few surprises. How about Colston Loveland, which right now may seem more egregious than finding Jeanty at 20, seeing Loveland fall to round number 2. But some background on him first, and then I'll explain why I think he could fall to the second round. 6'5", 245, incredible separation ability at the tight end spot that unfortunately just did not get enough attention his last year in Ann Arbor, with the Michigan offense as a whole taking a big step back. There's a lot to like about Loveland's game, and I think that if J.J. McCarthy was his quarterback for another season, the overall tune surrounding Loveland would be very different. 582 yards, despite having an offense that could barely complete a forward pass, 5 touchdowns. In his championship season with the Wolverines, 649 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was such a versatile receiving threat, and we know Sean Payton loves that out of his tight ends, and Loveland fits the bill. Now, I don't believe that he's going to fall all the way towards the bottom of round number 2, so this would likely require a trade up. But if you're thinking there's no way he's going to fall to round 2 to begin with, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not going to say I'm right or you're right and I'm wrong and you're wrong. But what I can tell you is, as I love my history is on the Broncos side here. Look at the last 5 years. There's not been a draft where 2 tight ends went in round number 1. The last time 2 tight ends went in the first round was when the Broncos took Noah Fant, 20th overall, after the Lions selected TJ Hawkinson in the top 10. So this is not a position that frequently flies in the first round of the draft. There is a very real chance that Loveland could fall to day 2, and the Broncos could possibly trade up and secure him. The 5th and final step of a perfect offseason plan, I'm going to go with drafting defensive tackle Alfred Collins. There are a lot of really good defensive tackles in this class. Collins is not like my first or second favorite, but I'm prioritizing the run game, the tight end game, and then the interior defensive line. And Collins in the 3rd round of the draft could be a really good pick for the Broncos. He's got the size box checked. 6'5", 320 pounds. He is what you are looking for in a prototypical 1-3 technique nose tackle interior defensive lineman. He's a great run stopper. That was on full display this past season in Austin. Now, he does not have the pass rush upside that people crave from an interior defensive lineman, since the worst place for a quarterback to get pressure from is up the middle. And his stats reflect that. 1 sack last year for the Longhorns, 2 sacks the year before that. But you know what? I'm not drafting Collins to get after the quarterback. I've got plenty of other guys to do that. In fact, this is a team that just led the NFL in sacks. Benito, Cooper, Zach Allen, Jonah Ellis, John Franklin Myers, they all can get after the quarterback. But the interior defensive line, DJ Jones is going to be a free agent. To me, this is a spot where if you can just find a really good run stopper, you're going to complement the strengths already built into this front 5 for the Broncos. So I would go with Alfred Collins as a true run-stopping interior defensive lineman in round 3 of the draft after addressing running back and tight end in the first 2 rounds. So grade my perfect offseason plan. If this all happens and we are just breaking it all down in April after the draft is over, what are you thinking? You thinking, oh my God, the Broncos just murdered this offseason, giving it an A? Or is this, in your eyes, an absolute nightmare? It's an F. I don't know how it could be an F. Like, put my own bias aside since I'm the chef of this thing here. At worst, this is a B- in my opinion. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to like the video. It does go a long way to help boost the channel, and I'll make sure to see everyone tomorrow.